Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Kill Boksoon. You should have led a better life if you wanted to die of natural causes. Hey there, my name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Kill Boksoon. Special thanks, as always, to our friends at Netflix for giving us the opportunity to watch this movie early for review. If you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, games, toys, and collectibles, and all things Geekcentric. Now, I'm stoked to get into this review, but just before we do, I also want to let you know that if you're like us and you love the world of Star Wars, we have our Watch Club series where we break down episodes weekly, giving our thoughts and theories along the way. And our Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 2 Watch Club is wrapping up this week with the final 2-episode finale, which you should be able to watch those last 2 episodes right now, and our Watch Club should be up this Friday for that. So definitely look forward to that if you're listening to this on the day of release. We also have our Mandalorian Season 3 Watch Club, where we did take a little bit of a pause on that Watch Club. We're going to be coming back after the finale for that series, but our last episode that we did featured the incredible Alden Diaz of Octo Radio, where we discussed The Foundling as well as Alden's Star Wars Mount Rushmore. So go check out those episodes, and I'm sure we'll have another Watch Club coming real soon. Boksoon. But with that out of the way, let me get to this review. Joining me is my fellow assassin/parent, Justin, the jaw-dislocating Lawrence.
Ooh, another good wrestling name. Yeah, or even a boxing name.
The jaw-dislocating Lawrence?
Yeah,
exactly.
Box.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I thought I was bad with the jokes, but dad jokes coming in. Justin, how are you doing this fine evening?
Doing good. Ready to talk about this movie and all of its killing goodness.
Sure. Do you think now that you've been a parent for what, like a couple weeks now, month, 2 months, 3 months?
No, exactly. Yeah. Just over 5 months. Now,
wow.
So yeah.
Do you think you'd be able to pull it off, the assassin/parent life?
Depends. There has to be good intention behind it.
Oh, behind the assassination?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I was a hired killer that had to take people out, it would have to be because it was doing good for the world. You know?
Okay, I like that. Would you have any specific rules?
Oh yeah, I'd have a code. No kids, that's for sure.
Okay.
And they would have to be someone of a higher figure, higher power that must be a part of a larger network. Like, think of a drug cartel, take out the head of the cartel and work your way down. So I think that's the smart way to go about it. But I'm pretty much describing the ins and outs of the situation that we find our main character, Kill Boksoon, in this movie. And it's actually funny because I've actually just been watching on Netflix as well, Agent Elvis, which is an animated show, and it stars Matthew McConaughey, and it's basically a fictional story about Elvis if he was an agent and assassin killer that worked for the government. And I don't know, it's tons of fun. So it kind of feels like watching this movie aligns with elements of that show. It's obviously
there's
animated.
There's a few things we're going to talk about that it aligns with maybe a bit too much.
Sure.
But why don't we do this? Let's get to the synopsis for this movie, and we'll get to it here. Boksoon leads a double life. She is both a mother of a teenage daughter and the legendary professional killer at the top-tier killing agency MK Enterprises. Caught between the mission of killing someone and the mission of raising someone, Boksoon refuses to complete an assigned mission and is thrown into an inevitable fight. The film stars Jeon Do-yeon, Isom, Kim Si-ah, Lee Yeon, Koo Kyo-hwan, Sol Kyung-gu, and Hwang Jung-ming. Apologies if I mess any of those pronunciations up.
I think you did those pretty well, but
pretty good?
I'm not Korean, but yeah.
Not yet anyways. The movie is directed by and written by Byun Sung-hyun, and will be streaming exclusively on Netflix this Friday on March 31st. Justin, why don't you kick us off with what worked for you with Kill Boksoon?
Well, in your synopsis, you were talking about the duality of being a mother and a killer. And I think that narrative, it feels familiar to this type of a movie scenario, but it does it a little bit different in that it delves into the themes of vengeance and justice, but, has a little more of the psychological effects of trauma. Given that Boksoon is a mother by day and a killer by night, there's a lot to unpack on both sides of that story.
Right.
And I think that duality really works for establishing two sides to the coin that is Boksoon. And I appreciate that. That worked for me. I think that it adopts from things that we know. This in itself feels like Kill Bill, right? It just based on the theme, but explored differently. There's different elements at play, whereas Kill Bill is more for the wow factor of the violence and the killing. I think this movie tries to go more introspective with its emotional resonating effects, kind of exploring revenge and trauma and the entanglement of the two.
Yeah, I definitely felt that as well. And I think I appreciated the attempt for that sort of narrative. I don't know if they fully nailed it. I will say, the movie is really long. I think it's a bit too long. But for some of the scenes that we did get that I appreciated that did add a bit to its length were the scenes between Jill and her daughter, right? I do think that their chemistry was really good. I thought that they worked really well together in terms of playing off this idea of these two characters. They both have a secret, and they don't want to let each other into each other's lives. They're putting up these walls as they can, kind of say throughout the movie. And I thought that really did work, and that's I think there's that and maybe the cinematography, I think, were the most original parts about this film for me. I think I will get into what didn't work, but I talking about what I really did enjoy, I think the cinematography in this movie was really fun. I think Cho Hyung-rae did a great job in working off shots of like reflections or shots cut through like almost this slow motion effect as train cars are passing by. The way that the camera fluidly moves gives a really good sense of sort of fun in the fight sequences. And there's a specific scene and sequence that I think is where it caught my attention. I sort of sat up in my chair and I was like, okay, this is actually really cool. And it's a sequence when Jill is and another character who I'm not going to name to stay spoiler free, but they're fighting a group of guys back to back against a wall, and the camera is moving through one door and another, kind of in a rotation circle. So cool.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The visuals of this film feel similar to that of a top tier Hollywood action film. It's focusing on the choreography and the camera's movement with that choreography, and I think that's very staple to these type of movies. But the instance that you're talking about, specific sequence, that's a Michael Bay shot. Michael Bay has used that shot twice in two different movies, Bad Boys 2 and the first Transformers, where the camera is rotating on a 360 degree axis, and it's almost passing through two different spaces, showing you two different sides of the wall and the fight at the same time, which it's an interesting way to choreograph the camera work with the fight sequence and have it create tension through what we're seeing and what we're not seeing as it passes through each of the walls. What are you going to see on the other side of that wall? I think that's one of the more celebratory parts of this movie is Cho Young-rae's cinematic techniques. I really loved the way they played with time too. They incorporated a little bit of some time displacement, which was also just in moments experiencing time. I think that this has fun with the varying possibilities a situation can lend itself to having, right? And I think that's utilized, sprinkled throughout, and then really hammered home in a bit of a climactic part of the movie where it really sings and it really takes the whole scene to the next level.
It's interesting that worked for you. That was one of the things that I think kind of got a little stale for me. I'll explain a little bit why in a little bit, because I do want to stay positive just for this first section of our review. But I do also want to shout out Lee Yoon. I thought was fantastic as this this intern character. I thought she did a really, really great job of sort of playing off Jill and just sort of the admiration she has for her and just kind of wanting to be the best. She wants to be her. And so to kind of get that sort of mentor relationship, I would have liked to have seen it a little bit more of it in the movie, but for the moments that we did get between them, I thought it was really, really well done.
Yeah, Leon was great. I think she was comical yet sincere. You could see how Boksoon saw a little bit of herself in Kim. She was
reluctantly,
young, ferocious.
Reluctantly seeing herself.
Yeah, reluctantly for sure. But that's that juxtaposes her relationship with her daughter. Right? And I think that this is someone who understands what she does. She's young. She's ferocious. She's skilled, just like she was, like Boksoon was in her early days. It very much reminds her of being able to have a connection with someone that is not immersed in a lie, because you were talking about it before, but lying is such an underlining theme throughout this whole movie, and the idea of secrecy in and around it, it binds these characters together very much, and I think that's indicative of the line of work that Boksoon is involved in. But we do see it on all levels, from Boksoon to her daughter, from her daughter to Boksoon, to Boksoon to her company and MT, right? Like, just all these different levels, and even the higher ups and how they interact with the different companies and stuff. It's sort of embedded, and I think that comes to a really great conclusion in the final moments of the movie, where it does, that theme kind of wraps itself up.
Yeah, and I think with Leon's character Kim, I think for Boksoon, it's kind of a fantasy. It's a fantasy that she gets to live out, and a sort of a false reality that she sort of gets to live out this experience of maybe what she sort of wishes she could have, that connection with her daughter, but she just allows it to happen with this other younger kid. Again, the action in this movie is fantastic. I think the fight choreography is really fun. There's some really sort of original kills in the movie, and I will say there are some slight moments of comedy. I think there could have been more in this movie. I do think it does take itself a little too seriously, but now I'm starting to get into what didn't work. Justin, do you have anything else that worked for you before we?
Well, the action and the choreography. Well, as you were saying, the action and choreography is top notch. It takes a while to get there, and we'll talk about that. But in terms of performances, I was intrigued by Isum, who plays Director Cha. I think she was a fantastic villain. She felt very psychotic and sadistic, and it was hard to read her at times, but she was feeling the situation out and trying to figure out who she has to fuck over. And then of course, Jeon Do-yeon, who plays Gil Boksoon, or as the movie's titled, Kill Boksoon. Again, strong, badass performance. And I think the moments that she gave us, more of an emotional performance, really helped to serve as a duality to this killer personality that she has. She has to be tough in the line of work, but those moments where she was more sincere and emotional, those felt so jarring in the right way. From her character as this killer. Like, you can definitely understand that Kill Boksoon is a persona, which is, and when you see her in these emotional moments, especially with her daughter and stuff like that, it really resonates to show that there is two sides to this character. And I thought that worked beautifully.
Well, she's leading a double life, but I like that I think right off the bat, right from the opening scene, which is a fantastic opening scene. It was very captivating, with her just on the bridge, with this guy that she's going to be taking out. And I will say, I think the way that she carries herself, the way that she's able to kind of portray the charisma and cockiness, really lead you to believe that yes, she is the best of the best. And I think Jeon Do-yeon, it's different from, and I'm not gonna lie here. I even though lying is a really important theme in the movie, I haven't really seen anything else she's been in. But from what I've read about her, this is a different role for her, and I think she really did an outstanding job of carrying herself as this character. Is there anything else before we get into?
Yeah, I know you're itching to talk about what didn't work, so
listen,
I'll allow
man,
you to.
Here's the thing. I think that this movie, we've talked about the two things that are a little more original in this movie. The parent aspect and the some of the cinematography, even though you completely debunked that that one scene that I was like, that was so original. And you're like, no, man, that's Michael Bay. I'm like, oh, okay. But I will say...
Well, just to be clear about that, it's not that Michael Bay invented that camera technique.
Okay.
It's just that he's used that camera technique. And for myself, I thought of Bad Boys 2 and Transformers, where I had seen that technique used. I'm sure it's been done numerous times, right?
Yeah.
But to do it in the instance and how it was leveraged, it has its own unique qualities that make it special, right? That make it its own thing. So
it was
it's
a get
still
hype moment in the movie for sure.
Exactly. It was definitely a get hype moment, and it worked. It really did work to use that. I think that's smart.
Yeah. I guess the problem is I just saw John Wick 4, right? And I don't want that to take away too much from this movie, but that was one
I
of
have
my to
things,
say
yeah.
this feels very much like a John Wick movie, and
but I think
that's
it got
not
things
necessarily
better
a
than
bad
John Wick.
Did it though?
I think the organization that she works for, it has the same lofty,
exact same
weird hierarchy system of power. I understood it more than I understand John Wick's world elements.
I can't say the same. I honestly can't. For me, I was like, I'm watching a movie that I watched a couple nights ago, almost again. And just, it was one of those things where I didn't find the world as captivating because of all the similarities. And again, I think what I did find captivating was the stuff that we already talked about, was her relationship with her family. I think they could have leaned a little bit more into the dark humor side of this movie to kind of separate itself from some of these overtly serious assassin stories that we already know. I think the idea of balancing her life as a mom and an assassin, yes, they do that through the relationship with her daughter, but I think there's a lot of other things that they could have focused on for her as a mom, or even just like her in her everyday life. Like there's there's one scene that I can think of where they do kind of play it off with a kind of a joke of her having a tea party with some friends, and Boksoon, and they get to her and she's sharing vacation stories, and it cuts to like different places that she's been around the world of her, like, slicing a guy's head off and stuff like that. And I'm like, cool, like, give me more of that. I think the film could have been a little more playful to help separate itself from all these other movies that unfortunately are coming out at, like, John Wick just came out. It's happening all at the same time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I saw the same comparisons as you to John Wick. Like I said, I think I was able to follow it a little bit more intensely. This is one movie, and I was able to understand how the structure of the hierarchy of the system that she's a part of works. I don't think I got that off the top with John Wick. I don't know if that was necessarily intentional, but as they started to build out the world, like watching the following movies where they do really lean into the world building, it just becomes so convoluted, and that always took me out. It's like, why are we complicating this world, right? Why are we making it more complicated? Here, at least, I can understand the structure of how the hierarchy works. But that said, I think what this movie is doing is adopting from all of the movies that are like it from Hollywood and adapting it into Korean cinema to tell its own story. Because I think the difference between something like this and John Wick is the focus on the emotional relationship. Like, I think John Wick 1 had that, and it was focused on him and a dog, right? That was what was so beautiful about that story. And here it's really the duality of being a killer and a mother. And I agree with you. I think pacing is probably going to be the biggest discussion about this movie overall, because I think that, the first half of this movie takes the time to build out what will be an eventual vengeance part of the story.
The second act, like the last hour, is where
fantastic.
It kicks off.
It's where it kicks off. But that said, it spends the first part building out the characters and sort of understanding their relationships, their motives, and their intentions. So while it might take some time to establish so much of the story, when we get to that second half of the movie, everything feels more earned. We've spent time with these characters. We understand their relationships, and we understand why these things are happening. But I agree with you. I think they could have stripped it a little bit, because it became too convoluted. Like, I don't know if we needed all the stuff about, the different fractures within this company that are killers. Like, I don't know. Like, I think certain things could have just been pulled back so that you could still stay focused on the mother and the killer, like those two sides of that. And I think that's what I always appreciate about Korean film, is that looking for that simplicity. And I think they kind of overcomplicated it. It has a very simple story and a simple theme, but you know, they added so much to build out the world so that it could feel like a John Wick. Like, is this something they want to franchise? You know, Kill Boksoon
Correct.
2.
And that's the thing too, right? Like there is kind of like a high table kind of
exactly,
you know,
a high table
group of characters, right? And they're all there, and I didn't care about any of those characters, those high table guys, the men at the top.
They didn't make sense
care about
for the
any
story.
about them.
Yeah.
No, and it again, like you're saying, that you're absolutely right. It feels like they're trying to just say, well, when Kill Boksoon 2 comes out, this is going to be important, and it
makes
just
more
seems,
sense. Yeah.
Right. But again, I don't know if it's necessary. Like you said, I think they could have stayed focused on just keeping it to MK Enterprises and just focusing it within there. And if they wanted to add some sort of a tease or tag to a bigger picture, maybe they could have done something like that at the end. I also want to just say the CG blood just was all over the place, flying through the air. It kind of took me out of some of those fight scenes where it sort of felt a little weightless at times. I also think the fake out thing that you're describing was super cool the first time they did it. I was like, whoa, like that is so cool. But they do it a ton of times throughout the movie, and it takes away from the gravity of the situation. And I get that it was used to incite the idea of like what could have been, or it almost gives the idea that Gil has has like a foresight ability of some kind. And at first I was like, is this like a power she has? But it just kind of, I don't know, it just sort of was a little distracting. I don't think it was necessary. And then the only other thing I want to say before I let you take the mic back here is that I think the music was really generic. It was really butt rock. It was really dance synth, and it didn't do anything to really elevate what was going on in the movie. I could have watched this movie without music, and I think I might have been a bit better.
Yeah, I don't think the music is a standout for sure. I don't think it's meant to be. I think the important parts of this movie are the action and the choreography, and of course the story, the duality that we were talking about off the top. But I do agree with you. There's so much that they're trying to do with this movie, and that's kind of what hurts it, is that they are doing too much. You know, the time displacement or the fake out scenes, like I think those moments highlighted Boksoon's skill to, you know, evaluate a situation and make a judgment. And that kind of manifests itself in a really big way. It highlighted a really important moment between two characters. And I thought that was really well done to bring it back in a very climactic moment to highlight, you know, not knowing what's next. But again, I think my biggest complaint, very much like you, it's just trying to do too much. I think there's too many elements at play. What could have been a simple story about a mother who's also a killer kind of gets swept up by the idea of trying to build a world out of this.
When it didn't need to. Because again, I think the movie sings when it does, again, play off some of those positives, the relationship, the between her and her daughter, the balancing of being a mom and an assassin. And I think the staying with the idea of like, we don't need to show this entire massive group of companies. We could just stay within the one. And I think they could have shaved a lot of time off the movie. Let's get to our final thoughts, which for this movie, we're going to be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 bloody knives.
Well, look, Kill Boksoon is a bloody and bold film that takes the themes of trauma, vengeance, and justice to tell a story about a mother who is also a killer. But as clear as those themes are, the film does feel stuffed with unnecessary elements that take away from the overall story. As we were mentioning before, the film's cinematography is top-notch, stunning visuals that enhance the film's mood and atmosphere, and adds an air of Hollywood approach to the filmmaking style of this movie. The performances across the board were fantastic, but particularly the lead, Kill Boksoon, played by Jeon Do-yeon, she delivers a raw and emotional performance that is both heartbreaking and inspiring. One of the strengths, though, of Kill Boksoon is its ability to delve into the psychological complexities of trauma and revenge, and explore that duality in relation to the duality of Kill Boksoon, who is a mother and a killer, all making for an engaging, suspenseful story. The film's pacing will be a topic of debate as it is far from perfect. The first half of the movie does spend a lot of time establishing characters and their relationships and their motives, so that when you get to the second half, there's more of an emotional connection to the tense and thrilling fight sequences that will definitely keep you engaged. Overall, Kill Boksoon does feel like it's trying to do too much all at once. What could have been a simple story is overwhelmed with unnecessary world-building qualities. That said, if you're a fan of Korean cinema, you'll want to check this out. If you're a fan of East Asian action movies, you'll want to check this out. But again, it's not a perfect movie, and I do appreciate what it was trying to do, especially in and around the theme of lying and secrecy, and really bringing it all back to this simple idea that the truth will set you free. So to be able to take that away from this movie, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 bloody knives.
Alrighty. Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. I think the movie there's a wonderful original idea that they managed to hit in parts of the movie, of the ideas, or a couple of themes, the ideas of motherhood and keeping a secret, and her relationship with her daughter, I think, is really, really great. I think that they didn't quite nail that, as you said, from a pacing perspective. We do have a lot of moments of sort of building out these characters. I would have liked more time building out these characters than building out this world. And we didn't need as much as we got from as you said, the idea of setting up Boksoon 2. I think the action in the movie is top notch. I think the cinematography is fluid and fun and does some really cool, sort of unique things outside of that one shot that I referred to earlier. But I think it does have some really cool, like, that's kind of neat how they shot that through. Like, there's a reflection off a puddle at one point and things like that. I think that the performances, I think the stand-up performance is from Kill Boksoon, from Jeon Do-yeon, I think did a phenomenal job, and I would like to see her in more movies. But I think that this movie, unfortunately, is going to be overshadowed. I think it not only in the large list of things that are all over Netflix, but it'll also be overshadowed by a big Hollywood release like John Wick, which is out now. So I will say, give it a chance. I definitely think you should give it a watch. As you said, as Justin said, if you are a fan of Korean cinema, this will definitely be up there for you. I think the biggest thing is, I would feel more inclined to recommend it to everyone, even outside of that scope, if maybe the movie was about 40 minutes less of what it was.
Sure. But I would say that in response to that, I would say, if you're a fan of John Wick, check out this movie.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if you want to see John Wick done differently with similar aspects, check out this movie, because I think that that is the fan base that I think they're trying to tap into, right? Which is absolutely why they might be hitting, trying to hit for a sequel with building out like a franchise with it.
But I think the movie could have been, as I mentioned, I think the movie could have been a little more fun. I think there were some aspects to it that, especially in the trailer, going into this movie, and maybe I shouldn't have watched the trailer. I just sort of felt like there was going to be a little bit more of a fun sensibility, and I think the movie does at times take itself a little too seriously. But that being said, yeah, give it a watch. It's fun. 3.5 out of 5 bloody knives. Well, that is it. We hope you enjoyed this spoiler-free review for Kill Boksoon. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts on this movie or any of the movies that we cover, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw an unsolved Rubik's Cube over to Justin so he can let you know how you can reach us.
And I'm going to throw it back to you because Rubik's Cubes I can't solve. So
no, I couldn't.
They can reach us they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on Twitter at geekcentricyt or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
Keep in mind, we have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies, TV shows, games, including our spoiler-free review for the Apple TV Plus original series Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episodes 1 to 4, the Apple original film Tetris, and we also have our spoiler-free review out now for Dungeons and Dragons. We also have our most recent This Week in Geek episode where we were so lucky to have been joined by Q107's own Fearless Fred. We hung out with Fred to discuss his new comic series called Dead Romans, and it's published by Image Comics. It is out, and the first issue is out now. Definitely go pick it up. It's a fantastic read. We also have some great interviews out now, like our interview with Mandalorian producer and director Rick Famuyiwa and Bo-Katan Kryze herself, Katie Sackhoff. And if you're a fan of a certain Apple TV Plus series that involves musicals, well, we've got a couple of interviews coming that you will not want to miss. So subscribe here as well as over on our YouTube at youtube.com/Geekcentric. You can check out our TikTok at We Are Geekcentric to catch some of the highlights of other interviews we've done. Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this bloody review. And as we say, love ya.
Peace.